A big story in The Athletic today. Sam Amick did a little bit of reporting and found that the Philadelphia 76ers have a list, Rob, of 30 players that they would trade Ben Simmons for. So they're like, how dare you say we wouldn't trade him? We got a list of 30.
The problem is 20 of them are retired from the NBA. That's the only problem. No, nothing. Michael.
Everything's not funny.
Here's the money quote, Rob.
And
you know that Daryl Morey is known as like a guy that just will not bend. He won't do what he considers a bad trade. He's going to stand his ground even if it's uncomfortable. And one of the sources in the story says this. Now, they believe, Rob, of the 30 guys they would trade Ben Simmons for, they believe 5 to 10 of them will be available, get this, within the next year or two. And one of the sources in the story says this is like a multi-year thing. In other words, don't think we just going to trade him because it's getting uncomfortable.
Right.
And Rob, I like Ben. I interviewed Ben Simmons before he got drafted, and I like him. And I thought he was going to be great. And he's good. He's a very good player. But I am not with this. I'm not with it. Look, maybe he really does have a mental health issue. I think you could certainly argue that, Rob, because he clearly is phobic to shooting. He really is. Like, I do think there is a mental block that's keeping him from shooting the basketball.
But Chris,
clearly what we saw, Rob, in the playoffs was some type of mental stuff going on. Now, that said,
but haven't we watched his Instagram and all the other stuff?
Right.
All these,
he be killing
everybody.
Former high school players,
right? Am I
at
wrong
the Y. Oh yeah, no, Jays galore. I don't believe he. I'm shocked, Rob, that he posts that stuff. Because first of all, who in the world are these dudes you playing against? Secondly, you're shooting jumpers. Right, you're shooting all these jumpers, but then you get in the NBA game and you won't take one. But, so there may be some type of little mental block going on, which he should see somebody about. But, Rob, here's the deal. 26%, because this is big. I've talked to people just this week in the NBA about, like, what are y'all going to do with this? Because anybody can say they got a mental health issue. Because it's hard to decipher what is and isn't and all that. But 26% of American adults in a given year, Rob, have a diagnosable, not just something you could say, but a diagnosable mental health issue. But we don't have 26% of American adults keep holding out from work. The overwhelming majority of that 26% still has to go to work. I mean, unless you're talking about people that are really, severe problems and they actually are living in homes and things like that, mental health facilities. But the majority of Americans with a diagnosable mental health issue still show up to work. And so I still think, okay, Ben, we got to work with him on, getting out of that mental funk, that fog, that block, that fear that keeps you from shooting. But, Rob, I'm sorry. I don't like my employer. I don't think that's a mental health issue. I don't like my employer, so I don't want to go to work today. I don't think that's a mental health issue. My boss says something to me or about me that I don't like. I don't think that's a mental health issue. I think you deal with it. You show up, prove your boss wrong, whatever. And so we said it before, Rob, and I'll say it again. If Ben doesn't want to play for the Sixers, you can sit out. You just don't get paid. Rob, if you decided, I'm done with Rob Guerra. I can't stand him. He said something about me.
Well, that's true, but that's another story.
You couldn't just sit out and keep getting paid. Right?
That's right. I still got to do the podcast, right? Whether he wants me to be there or not. He'd rather somebody else host
He'd rather
the Inside
do it.
the
He
Podcast.
wants to shine. You know
what I mean? Like,
he's gotten to taste the straight fire. That
how's that show doing?
ill-named podcast, but
I thought that show would have burnt up by now. You know what I mean? But
no, it's actually a really good podcast. I've never missed Straight Fire.
Look
But
at you.
Rob,
all right, no,
you know what I'm saying?
Rob's been on that podcast 3 times. What are you talking about, Rob?
Oh,
Hey,
now I'm offended. Why haven't I been on it?
Those are like 3 of the highest rated days, aren't they?
That's
Like 3
true.
hours
That's a
long.
big fact.
Okay.
You never answered me, Rob G. Why haven't I been on
You're on another show in the morning. Do
I
your
know,
show,
Chris.
and
Okay.
you don't have time for all that, Chris.
You trying to be the Stephen A. of Fox Sports Radio
I
where
know,
you're
my God.
24/7?
Can somebody else get on
I
for a
know.
minute?
Come on.
Look at y'all. Rob, respond. You hear what I said? You give me love, something, applause.
I mean,
you agree?
part of it is I do agree with you. Okay, about if you don't work, you don't get paid. It appears, Chris, I'm not his doctor. I haven't examined him or talked to him. So for me to say he's jaking it or he's not real, but all the indications are he's not happy with his work situation. So I'll fake something so that I don't have to work and I'll still get paid. That's what it on the surface without diagnosing him, right, or examining him, Chris.
Yep.
That's what it feels like.
Yep, it does.
Okay?
Because
if you remember, he
mental
didn't
health
even
wasn't
want to
even
see
brought
their
up till
doctors
late
at
October.
first.
Right. And mental health was not brought up until like October 22nd.
Right. And then
when
and
they
then
didn't want to pay him.
And then he doesn't want to see their doctors. No, I'm sorry.
Right.
But
Oh,
you
yeah, you
will
seeing
see
our
our doctors if we're going to pay you. Okay?
Totally
so,
agree.
This just doesn't work that way. I think I told you the story before. The reason Bernard King didn't re-sign with the Knicks after his injury, he wouldn't let the Knicks doctors look at his knee, Chris, after that horrific knee injury.
Right.
If you're the Knicks, you going to sign a guy to a contract without looking at his knee? No.
I agree with you. I mean, come on. Like, we're paying you. And we're paying you plenty. I don't get it, Rob. I don't get it. How can you not think they're paying you?
Because
And you're not going, like.
Yeah, this is the world we live in where people, Chris, and he feels like, he's already rich. He's got money from the years he's already played.
And that's true.
Okay, so
But then don't be crying over this money you're not going to get.
Yeah, but number 2, he feels there's a way he could finagle the system, not play for them, and still get the bulk of his money. Because you remember, he said he wasn't coming, all that stuff. And remember, the Sixers held that $8 million payment, and all of a sudden, he was at training camp.
Yep.
That's how it happened. Anybody could call it whatever they want. He was talking
absolutely.
a big game until they held that payment.
Right. I mean, apparently he thought he could do all that talking and sitting and get paid.
And he thought he was going to get his check. He thought the $8 million was coming, even though he's at a camp or whatever. Really?
Yeah.
I don't know what he hasn't owned a business, Chris. As a business owner, I know I ain't sending no check
see,
or
that's
straight
the
deposit.
thing. I mean, look. Yes, you got to understand